Hello, my name is Jacob Abreu, and this is my presentation on improving student engagement through daily opening routines.
Our main problem in the classroom is student engagement. Student focus is one of the most prevalent issues across every school, as we have tons of supports to already help students with their engagement, such as things like our MTSS framework, IEPs, 504s, MLL and gifted supports, and of course, differentiated instruction. When students are disengaged, the time that could have been used for teaching their small group instruction now has to be filled by redirection and discipline. Routines and expectations need to be created to fix those behaviors and allow students to know how to engage within the lesson and within the classroom. One of the expectations here at Jones is bell to bell instruction, making openers and lesson hooks one of the main focuses when planning lessons, as that increases student engagement from the time they enter the classroom. Integrating routines and opening assignments allows students to be engaged before and as they step into the room. The quote from Putra and Yanto shows us that routines are evidence based strategies that increase student engagement. At Jones, we need to integrate these strategies into our lesson as effectively as possible.
Being a curriculum team lead and then also being a part of our Tilt leadership group, we've seen more and more how engagement is a problem across all of our content areas. As we get to more difficult content or as class drags on, students become way more disengaged than usual. So the question becomes, how do we engage our students more? And then also, we've noticed that when students disengage more, it's because they have foundational learning gaps. We notice that these students have gaps in their reading levels, in their math levels, and their iReady scores. And then also what comes up is that teachers are worried about content calendars. So how do we mitigate the standardized testing pressure while also keeping students engaged and making sure that content is being delivered correctly? And finally, one of the main concerns is that teachers don't know how to engage in the beginning of the lesson. They either use games to engage, such as Bookit or Gimkit, and then or they either have no routine at all and just jump straight into the content. So this study will mitigate those concerns.
So, what our study aims to improve is the focus of opening sections of lessons because that's where learning truly begins. After reading multiple articles on the strengths of routines and structures, they all look at the overall effect instead of examining specific strategies and specific time frames within the lesson. This study is going to aim to close that gap. We will analyze the openers that teachers already have in place and determine which are most effective. We are also going to analyze which routines and assignments certain student groups, like gifted, IEP, MLL, most engage with and are most relatable to. All teachers will benefit from these predictable expectations because students will start to become more proactive versus reactive in their learning. This also reduces teacher variability in the classroom. We're always worried about what teachers are doing in their classroom and being on the same page, and have already moved towards common lessons. This is also one of our most talked about points during synchro planning. Again, our current practices are not bad, but to close learning gaps, reduce behaviors, and increase outcomes, we need to make sure that students are able to get prepared to be efficient in the daily classroom.
So this study aligns perfectly with our LSPI and QPTS framework. The structures and assignments engage with the high quality tier 1 instruction we're giving, and it also starts the students off engaged and ready for the main part of the lesson by activating their critical thinking. The openers can be designed to target weak AKS and specific MTSS groups to support or extend their thinking. The opening can also be differentiated for all groups just as long as it's going to be consistent across the grade. Looking at the lesson plans for the eighth grade science, the SOC, which is the Science Communication Center for Gwinnett County, shows us that the openers are aligned with the district plans and can be used to implement literacy as an everyday task, which is also district aligned. Teachers can also use these opening assignments as ways to, as sort of an opening ticket to assess previous knowledge. And then with our AI framework, students can use AI to assist them in solving problems. And then the teachers can use AI to make the situations for their opening assignments so students can validate with their own knowledge. And then after that, it will lead to class discourse and then critical analysis of the content.
So, the function of our study is to focus on how structured daily opening routines are increasing student engagement and improving learning outcomes in our classrooms. For this, I've carefully selected four different teachers. First, an eighth grade science teacher, Miss Baltus, who has also just finished her work in curriculum and instruction, the same course as me. Second, a seventh grade social studies teacher, Mr. Shaver, who has also finished his curriculum instruction in history. And then third, a sixth grade teacher who has finished their curriculum instruction last year, but in the science curriculum. And then the last part of my team will be an eighth grade math teacher who has their doctorate in curriculum instruction. They have been my mentor throughout my classroom management and can also provide some insight into what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. Now, to help these teachers out, I will be providing all the methods that we'll be using, the observation logs, the Likert scale tests, and how to send them out to all the teachers, and also the frameworks to grade the responses against. They're going to be observing their own team and their own curriculum, and they're going to analyze the patterns and details that their curriculum brings to them and how that applies within our study. So 5 separate things qualify me to lead this project. One, of course, is my 4 years of teaching, which I have successfully been endorsed with my Gifted M and MLL endorsements. I've also had to support SPED learners, gifted learners, MLL learners, and of course regular ed learners with all sorts of strategies and routines of my own. I also have 2 years of being a curriculum lead, so I'm able to see what other teachers have done and see what works and what doesn't quite work, and also collaborating with them to improve their own strategies. I've tried new initiatives brought to me by my principal and as well as the district, and I know how to train teachers and help them figure out how that aligns with the AKS that we're trying to teach. I've also taught multiple grades. I've taught 6th and 8th grade, where I've been a part of both, so I can see how these strategies and these opening assignments work across the disciplines and grades, and also what is going to work with each group of students. My graduate work has mostly focused on curriculum instruction, so I have the teaching philosophies and frameworks to guide and enhance all the strategies. I also have designed experiments and lessons for my undergraduate degree. And finally, as an ALT member, which is an assessment leadership team member, I know the curriculums and assessments that the district is going to give and how our strategies need to align with the district goals, and then also how to steer our teachers and the study to align to our AKSs.
This study is going to take place over an 8-week period to allow us to collect all the data that we need and make sure that each teacher is implementing their routine consistently. During the first 2 weeks, this is going to be our baseline data, where we collect data on what's already being done and also making sure that the students are practicing with the routines and kind of getting the feel for it. Then in weeks 3 through 7, the routines are going to be fully implemented and our observations will start, and we're going to track student engagement. And this is kind of the main phase where I expect to see the changes in how they're reacting to the study and also how they're feeling, measuring, doing all the interviews as we go on. And then finally, in week 8, I will analyze the data and reflect on results to determine the overall impact of how our routines impacted the children. And as I said before, this study will be fully done within an 8-week period of our normal schedule, so there won't be any cost involved. It will be just the responsibility of the teachers to kind of keep up with their own work and then still keep up with doing the observations for the study. So this is a mix of the methods and the data collected during our study. The first thing we're going to look at is the daily structured open routine, what the teachers are implementing and why they're implementing it, the observational logs, which take a log of students and their behavior, monitoring whether they're on task, whether they're off task, what time they get off task. Then we're looking at percentage of students engaged. So this will be a little bit after the class gets started, how long it takes for them to get engaged in the task at hand, and then also the time it takes for them to lose focus after they start. We also have to focus on what off-task and on-task behavior look like to teachers and students. It might seem different depending on whether you're a teacher or whether you're a student. And then we'll also look at student and teacher participation data. These are things like interviews and Likert scales, just to view the teacher and student perceptions on what we're doing and how the routine is affecting their behaviors. We're also going to do a pre and post comparison of engagement. That first week will be our pre-test, looking at a baseline data scale, and then our post will be probably around week 8, where we're finishing analyzing and reflecting our data. So, like any classroom based studies, there are a few potential challenges to consider. The main risk is going to be in bias, where student responses and my own observations may be biased because students give me the answers that they think I want, or I may interpret behaviors subjectively because I am their teacher. It'll be the same across all our researchers. To address this, we need to make sure that we use a consistent and structured system with our observation logs, with the interviews, and then be transparent with the students about the purpose of the study and encourage their honest participation. One more limitation is going to be the limited time for our data. Since we have such a short planning and also we can't be everywhere at once, we're going to have to use our planning correctly, maybe go observe other grade levels and content areas, and then also maybe use some videos to see observations again and again to make sure we get all the data collected. There's also a possibility that students may temporarily change their behavior because they know they're being observed. Um, Making sure that we're collecting the data over an extended period, I can reduce that and make sure that they capture more authentic engagements. And then finally, also the student data will be kept anonymous. And then when they're reported in the summary form, they'll be anonymous and summarized to protect student their confidentiality, and making sure that we have those forms passed out to the parents so they know exactly what we're doing with their students. So again, Ms. Thorne, you being the principal, I'm requesting approval to implement this 8-week project. I do value how you support our school, and I want to make sure that our students are well engaged. I want to be able to create a more consistent and engaging learning community, as well as have our students be engaged from the bell to bell like we want them to. By establishing these routines and procedures, we can make sure that instructional time is maximized and then also support student success accordingly.